Today is, good morning everybody. Today is the 21st class. I have already started with the third module in which we are studying JavaScript. Very quickly, I will revise what we have done in the last class. In the last class, that is yesterday, there was a lot of disturbance. I mean, then there was a network issue. So the network had got stopped in between, then I had to reconnect. Lots of problems were there. But very quickly, let me just revise what we have done in yesterday's class. I have started with the third module in which we have studied what is JavaScript. Okay, what is JavaScript? More or less, you people now know that we have something called as client-side scripting and server-side scripting. Uh, Superficially, we know that what is the meaning of client-side scripting? It is a code, it is a script that gets executed on the client's machine, and the opposite of that is server-side scripting, which means that it is some sort of a code or a script that executes on the server machine. And you already know what is the relationship between a client and a server. Client are we people who open our laptops, we open our browsers, and then we type a URL in the browser, and we press on the enter button. A request goes to the server. We may request pages from different types of servers. We may request from www.facebook.com, www.google.com, youtube.com, instagram.com, so on. So we request pages, we request documents from various servers through the browser by typing a URL, and the servers will serve us those pages. So basically, we have understood overall exactly what is web technology, what is the relationship between the client and the server. Now, these pages which are served to the client, which are displayed to the client, are written using HTML. Uh, Now, to make these pages more attractive, more beautiful, what we do is we use another technology called as CSS, Cascade Style Sheets. We style our pages, make it more attractive. And then what we are learning further is we are learning one more technology called as JavaScript, which is going to make our web documents more interactive. So to make web documents more interactive, there has to be some sort of a script that executes on the client's machine. And this script executes on the browser. And this script is written using a technology called as JavaScript. JavaScript is just like any other programming language. It has got all sorts of features like other programming languages. Here you can declare variables, you have if condition, for loop, you can write functions, you can do a lot of things. You can read input from the user, you can display something to the user, all that. So we are going to study JavaScript as a programming language. We are going to understand the syntax of JavaScript. But when we started with JavaScript, we first learned what is the difference between JavaScript and other programming languages. Like JavaScript actually sounds similar to Java, but yesterday I told you that it sounds only similar to Java, but they are two very distinct and different programming languages. They are two distinct and different programming languages. Java is a strict programming language where it needs to be compiled then executed, and for its execution you require something called as a JRE or the JVM. Whereas JavaScript, we write programs and then this JavaScript code actually executes on the browser. Okay, the browser is capable of running JavaScript. Remember that much. Let us go further and then understand what is client side. I have already told you this is something which executes on the client's machine. When we say client side scripting, remember this script executes on uh, the browser. The browser is capable of running JavaScript. The browser has JavaScript runtime environment. The browser has JavaScript runtime environment, and hence it is able to execute that. Remember, client side scripting means it executes in the browser. So we saw exactly this one diagram in the last class. And further, we understood that when we write web applications, you can write these different web applications using different techniques. The first technique is simply using HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and in this case, what happens is if you are requesting a page, if it needs to be executed, then a browser is capable of running JavaScript and it executes that. The other way of developing web applications is by developing Flash, by using Flash. Flash is a technique for developing very interactive, very attractive web applications, but it's a different technology altogether. We are not going to learn that. Whenever you develop your website or your web application using Flash, you compile it into a SWF file. Okay, when you compile that, when you convert that Flash project into an executable file, it becomes a .swf file. And this SWF file, you need to embed it in your HTML. You have to put that into HTML, and whenever whoever requests this HTML pages, this SWF file is sent to them, and then it gets executed in the browser. Now remember, browser is not capable of running SWF files. In the browser, you need to install one plugin which is capable of running your SWF file. So this is another technique of developing your web applications. Okay, we are not going to go into detail. You just need to remember here that it is possible to develop your web application using one technology called as Flash. Okay, that's it. How to develop, how to write these programs, how to embed it in HTML, that all is not important right now. Just remember that this is another way of writing web applications. Okay, this is another way of writing web applications. There is another way of writing web applications, and that is by using applets. You know what is Java? Java has got one very important feature using which you can develop something called an applet. An applet is a small form, GUI, that you can develop. And then this applet is possible, it is possible for you to embed or put this applet into your HTML file. It is possible for you to put this applet into embedded means fix it into HTML. And then whoever requests this HTML, the applet also goes along with that, and it gets displayed in the browser. Now the browser again is not capable of running applets. The browser requires JRE, Java Runtime Environment. So the browser does not execute the applet. It sends it to the JRE, and the JRE executes it and shows the output to the browser. The browser displays it to the user. So this is another technique of writing your web applications. For this, in the examination, they may ask you a question like this. They may ask you a question like, how many types of, which are the different techniques of developing web applications? So you can say that you can develop it using simple HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, or you can develop your web applications using HTML and Flash. And then you can also write the third technique of developing web applications is by using HTML and Java applets. And then you should know more or less in 1 or 2 sentences, you should explain exactly when it is developed using Flash, what happens. When it is developed using Java applets, what happens. You have to simply explain it in your own words. And then there are diagrams like this, simple diagrams you can draw, the steps you can write, what happens. Now, a little history of JavaScript. I've already told you this was developed by Netscape in the year 1996. And this was basically developed only for running client-side scripting, that's it. Later on, JavaScript was used for developing more advanced things like Ajax. Ajax was one technique, a very, very useful technique which worked out and people today use a lot of Ajax. What is the meaning of Ajax? I will tell you. Ajax is a technology which it's a short form, and the full form of this Ajax is asynchronous. The A stands for asynchronous, J stands for JavaScript, A stands for and, X stands for XML. So it is asynchronous, JavaScript, and XML. Now, the most important object in Ajax is XML HTTP request. We will come to this in the last module. We will understand how to write code using this XML HTTP request. It is very simple. It is very simple and very good, very useful, very powerful. I have used this in several of the web applications myself. So this XML HTTP request is the heart of Ajax. Okay, it is all because of this object that you will be able to send requests to the server, receive response from the server, and then display it to the user and all that. But why is that required? We'll understand that. Now, in a normal HTTP request response loop, normally what happens is the client opens the browser. In the browser, the client types a URL. So the request goes for a particular page. In this case, the request is going for a page called as form.php. The request goes to the server responds back with a form. The user updates the form. The updated form is displayed to the user. Okay, now after the user updates the form to update, it has to make one more trip to the server. And this is the point when you will realize the difference between modern HTML applications, web applications, and old web applications. When we update the form, a request goes to the server. While the request is going to the server, the interface has to be refreshed and it has to be shown to the user. So while this interface is getting refreshed, the page in between becomes blank for the new UI to get loaded. It becomes blank, and then after the response has come back from the after the response has come back from the server, the UI is updated. In between, depending upon the speed of the net and all that, in between the page becomes blank. I will show you a demonstration. I don't know whether I will be able to show you this properly or not. Now this is a web page that I have opened. Okay, this is azure.microsoft.com. When I typed this website in the browser, it took a little time for the browser to load the entire page. You all have experienced that, okay? Because it doesn't suddenly come, except for Google. Google sometimes suddenly come because it is cached. It is already there in our browser. It is cached, and then suddenly it shows it to you, okay? But newly requested pages, when you request it for the first time, it takes a little time for to load. So slowly they come. First the top of the page comes, then after that the side comes, then in between what is there will come, and so on. So it will take its own time. Now that depends upon the speed of your internet and all that. Now look at this. Now there are so many options here. I want to click on something, okay? So when I click on this development and testing, okay, see, I clicked on that. Now immediately it has not gone to that page. It is taking its time, and then you can see in between here the page has become blank. I don't know whether you are able to see it in real time or no, but now the page has become blank. In my case, it has become black. The page is still loading on the top here, and so the request has gone. The response is slowly coming back from the server. In between, now you can see that it displays me the content. It displays me the content, and the entire content comes. Now, this is a page which suddenly came to me. Our internet is fast, so it came immediately. But in places or in users where the internet is a little slow, what you will see is the page becomes blank. First, the top of the page comes, then the side of the page comes, and then the middle part of the page comes, and so on. Progressively it will come. Okay. Now, if I click on, let us say, documentation, again, the request has gone in between. Yeah, this is quick. So it came back very quickly because we have very quick internet here. So you can see that it loaded immediately. But I'm talking about places where the net is slow and all that. What happens is the page becomes blank in between, and then you get the content displayed. Okay, this is what happens. This is what happens in traditional. I request for something, okay, from the server sends the response. In between, the page becomes blank. Okay, and after that, slowly the page gets updated. Then again, if I click on some button, I want to update, I want to request another page. The request goes to the server. Again, the page in between becomes blank, and the next page is loaded. This is what happens. This is what happens in traditional internet. What I am explaining to you people is the importance of Ajax. This is how the web application works without Ajax. The problem is that in between the request and response, there is a blank page that appears on the browser. How long the blank page remains depends upon the speed of the internet and so on. Now, to avoid this displaying of blank page in between, we make use of Ajax. How Ajax works is, I request a page, and on the page I get to display the form. I update the form. I update the form. What Ajax does is, it will not make your internet fast. Remember, Ajax will not make your internet fast. It will be as it is. Ajax is not responsible for improving the internet speed. But what it does is, unless and until the next page does not come, okay, the interface is displayed to you like that only. A blank page is not displayed in between. First, when you request for the first time the page, it will take a little time, so there will be a blank page, always. Once the form comes, when you select a particular country, let us say, when you click on the update button, you need to update this country, and then you need to select this. So while the user interface, look at this. This is an interface that should be displayed to the user after this country selected is Canada. When I click on the update button, this page does not become blank. Till the request from the server comes back, this is continued to display to you. The previous form is displayed to you continuously. And the moment the response from the server comes back, the updated form is immediately, in a fraction of a second, it is displayed to you. As if nothing has changed. There is no blank page in between. I hope this is clear. What I'm trying to say is, in between, the blank page is not there. It appears as if when I click on this, it will take time. It will not immediately show you this Canada is updated. It will take its time depending upon the net speed, but the page has not become blank in between. It will immediately receive the response in the background and then updates the UI for you and then displays it for you. This is how Ajax works, and it makes the applications more interactive, more responsive, and then the feeling of slow internet, the feeling of that is not there. Okay, that is not there. So we are going to study more about Ajax later on when we go to the fifth module. Right now, I just want you people to understand only one thing, that with a normal HTTP request response, in between every request and response, there is a blank page. But when you use Ajax, the blank page is not displayed to the user. Okay, now after that, why do we use there is a lot of advantages of JavaScript. Then we have to go for understanding what is the meaning of the design principles of JavaScript, why JavaScript is so useful, why it is so important, why it is so good to use JavaScript. Okay, design principles. First of all, remember that whenever we design any software or anything, when we design, it is always better to divide this work into multiple small parts so that it is easy for us to understand and for us to execute. Normally, whenever any project is developed, or whenever any web application is developed, it is divided into three basic layers. It is divided into three basic layers. First is the presentation layer, the second is the business layer, and the third is data layer. What is the meaning of presentation layer? Now, this presentation layer deals with all the code that is related to the user interface. UI is user interface. For example, I want a UI to be on the left hand side, I want a logo. On the right hand side, I want a table. Below that, I want the links. On the left hand side, again, I want the menu items to be. So this layout, this UI, the user interface, the graphical user interface, which is there. To deal with this graphical user interface, we require some code, we require some classes. So all those classes are put into one library, and that library can be called as a presentation layer. The presentation layer is a layer in which we deal with only the user interface. Okay, all the classes are grouped together into one library, and it deals only with user interface. It does not deal with server communication. It does not deal with database connectivity, nothing. It deals only with user interface, how to design, give it more attraction. All that is put into the presentation layer. Next comes the business layer, in which we actually do the business logic. The actual logic of the program, we write it in the second layer, which is called as a business layer. The actual calculation, the actual sending it to the server, receiving it from the server, all that business logic that is there in the web application, all those are grouped together into a layer called as a business layer. All the classes which will help us, all the built-in functions which will help us, is put into the business layer. And then finally, there is a third layer, which is called as a data layer, which is responsible for database connectivity. The data layer, or the data, the third layer is used, or it contains all the classes and built-in functions for doing database connection, interaction with the data sources and all that. So basically, whenever you have an application, web application, specifically for this subject, when you develop a web application, the web application is divided into three layers. The first layer is the presentation layer, which deals only with the user interface. The second layer deals with only the communication with the server, the business logic, the calculations, all that. And the third layer is the data layer, which deals only with interaction with the data sources. Okay, anything. Now, how do we do this in a web application? When we come to the presentation layer, we use JavaScript. In the presentation layer, JavaScript plays a very important role. It is possible through JavaScript to change the user interface. For example, let us say that yesterday I gave you one example. I opened Maratha Mandal's website, and then we went there. The moment I took the mouse pointer over a particular menu item, you saw that there was a drop down. There was a drop down coming automatically. So the user interface was changing. Initially, when I saw it, there was nothing in it, and then the moment I took the mouse over it, it suddenly. For example, now you can see this example here. Now you can see there are menu items. My mouse is over here. The moment I take it on top of architecture, you can see that there is an underline that comes. There is an arrow. When I click on that arrow, you can see that there is a drop down. When I click on that arrow again, it disappears. So this user interface that is changing is done using JavaScript. So JavaScript plays a very important role in the presentation layer. Okay, the interaction, depending upon the user interaction, the display that is changing is because of JavaScript. So what you have to understand here is that whenever we are learning JavaScript design principles, where exactly JavaScript will be used, when you develop an application, it is always divided into three very important layers: presentation layer, business layer, and data layer. In the presentation layer, we use JavaScript extensively because it is responsible for making your UI interactive. Okay, very, very interactive. Then comes validation layer. Validation layer is also part of presentation layer. Validation layer is also part of presentation layer. Why is validation required? I gave you this example yesterday. I said that when I have a form on my HTML page and I want the user to submit this form, putting his data into the form, what does the form contain? The form contains details like user's name. Let the user enter his password, let the user enter his email ID, let the user enter his phone, and then I want a registration form. I want a form in which the user is supposed to enter his registration details. Now, before the data or the form is submitted to the server, I want to validate this whether the user has entered that properly or no. Okay, so how can I do this validation? For example, if I'm asking the user to enter a phone number, the phone number should contain only digits. A phone number cannot contain alphabets like ABCD. Second thing is that second validation that I can do is if I'm asking the user to enter his name should contain only alphabets. It cannot contain digits. For example, if I'm asked to enter my name, my full name, if I enter Naveed123, can Naveed123 be my name? 123 cannot be there in a name. So a digit cannot be there in a name. And then finally, if I ask the user to enter his email ID, let us say the user enters 123, only 123. Is 123 a valid email ID? 123 is not a valid email ID. A valid email ID should at least contain an @ symbol and a dot. Is it not? So these type of validations, I can do it on the browser only before I submit the form to the server. Now that is done using JavaScript. That is done using JavaScript. So we are learning the design principles of JavaScript, where exactly JavaScript is used. Wherever applications are developed, it is developed into three layers, three forms, three layers, three sections, presentation layer, business layer, and your data layer. In presentation layer, JavaScript is extensively used for making a UI more interactive. In validation layer also comes under presentation layer. Why do we use this validation? Is because we want to validate the data before it is sent to the server, all that. So normally this is how it is. We have HTML, then we have CSS, then we have JavaScript presentation layer, then we have JavaScript validation layer, and then we have asynchronous. Of course, there is one more layer which comes into the business layer. In the business layer comes your asynchronous. Okay, this asynchronous layer is a business layer. Okay, in JavaScript, if I'm developing a web application, if I want to use JavaScript for my business layer, then I use the asynchronous layer or the business layer. What happens here is that Java can communicate with the server. Java can send, sorry, not Java, JavaScript. JavaScript can send requests to the server asynchronously and receive the response from the server, and then depending upon the response, the JavaScript can update the user interface and show to the user data which has come back from the server without having to refresh the page, without having to refresh the page, or without having to make the page blank. JavaScript is capable of sending requests internally while a page. See here, what happens is if I have a page like this, okay, and let us say I go here to this particular item and then I press on this particular button, okay. When I'm pressing on that particular button, now in the background, now the interface has completely changed. The interface has completely changed. If I click on this, you look at this example here. On the left hand side, I have the menu. If I click on architecture icons, if I click on that, you can see that immediately the information about architecture icons. The moment I click on this, JavaScript is picking up this user action, sending a request to the server, and this content, this entire content, it is getting from the server and immediately coming here and updating it. It is updating, it is changing the user interface. Now look at this. If I click on this Azure Architecture Center, then it comes, okay, fine. Then I'll go back here. If I click on framework, I'll click on framework here. You can see this opens up, and then when I click on overview, you can see that immediately within fraction of a second, the entire overview will appear there. Why this is happening is because JavaScript is sending something asynchronously in the background to the server, and it is receiving that content and displaying it in the user interface. All this is happening in the background. All this is happening in the background, and that's why it is so responsive. See, the moment I click on a button, I click on that, immediately then and there, the information is getting displayed. It is appearing as if the data is coming from this my computer only. But actually, you know, in the background, there is a request going to the server, and from the server, I'm picking up the data and I'm displaying it here. We will understand all this concept later on. how this has to be written, what code should be written for this. I will explain to you everything. But right now, currently, I want you to understand that JavaScript is capable of requesting some data from the server in the background without the user knowing it, and then coming back with the data and updating the user interface. That is done asynchronously. JavaScript is capable of that. So these are the design principles of JavaScript. Now, users without JavaScript. Now, who are the users? This is not very, I think, very important from your examinations point of view. But please remember that we have to understand this. Who are the users who does not use JavaScript? I think I have lost the page. It is now somewhere here. Yeah. Yes, the users without JavaScript. Yeah, there we are. Who are the users who are without JavaScript? Web crawlers. Web crawler is a client application which runs in the command prompt. They do not use JavaScript. Browser plugins. I told you that there are some plugins available which you can install in your browser, and using these plugins you can disable JavaScript. I told you that in the browser there is an option to disable JavaScript. So if, let us say, you have a browser and you have gone to the settings and you have disabled JavaScript, then JavaScript will not work. Okay, so these are the users. Users who will not have JavaScript are web crawlers, people who have disabled JavaScript in their browsers. Then text-based clients. There are some clients who are text-based. Okay, so these clients will also not have JavaScript. And then people who are visually disabled, people who are blind, they will have some browsers. Those browsers also, in those browsers also JavaScript will be disabled. Okay, so these are the people, these are the set of people or set of applications which do not have JavaScript. Okay, then in that case, what to do? Then there is a tag called as, in HTML, there is a tag called as no script. In HTML, whenever I write my HTML code like this, if I write my HTML code like this, okay, then I will have my body tag, you all know that. And then I can have my h1 tag, and then I can have something, then I can have my slash h1, then I can have my slash body, and then I can have my slash html. So this is a very simple HTML page. And if, let us say, you want to display something to the user who does not have JavaScript something, so you have to write it in the no script tag. There is a tag called as no script tag, and then you can write some information. Your browser does not support JavaScript. So you have a special tag in HTML called as no script. In between that, you can write whatever you want. Then you will ask me a question. So what is the importance of this no script? The no script tag displays this information to only those users on the browser in which JavaScript is disabled. If in my case JavaScript is enabled, this will not be displayed to me. This will not be displayed to me. But in browsers, some people in the world may have a browser in which they have disabled the JavaScript. For those people, this will be displayed. For those people, this will be displayed, whatever you write in no script. So normally, why do we use this no script? We use no script tag to display a message to the user saying that your browser does not support JavaScript, or you may have disabled JavaScript, please enable it, something like that. To write that, we use a no script tag. Okay, I hope you understood what is the meaning of no script. Fine, that's about it. In the examination, they may ask you, why do we use the no script tag? Okay, and they may ask you to write a small program to demonstrate this. So what I wrote just now, that much also, if you write, that is more than sufficient. Okay, for 4 marks, they may ask you that. So these are examples of that. Then gracefully regression progressive. Where does JavaScript go? Now, this is important. We have to understand exactly where to write JavaScript. Where to write JavaScript is what we have to understand. You have understood one thing when we were learning CSS. When we were learning CSS, I told you that where to write CSS. CSS can be written inside the tag, which is called as inline CSS. You can write CSS in the head section of the HTML document. It is called as embedded CSS. You can also write CSS in external files. It is called as external CSS. Similarly, JavaScript code or the JavaScript statements, we can write it in these three places. We can write it inline within the tag. We can write it embedded in the head section or in the script tag. In the head section, in the script tag, we can write JavaScript, or we can also write JavaScript code in external files. Just like in CSS, we used to write the CSS in files outside the HTML, and then we used to save it with extension .css, and then we used to include it in our HTML page by writing, inline, all that. That example I had shown you, how to include an external CSS into your HTML page by using a link tag. By using a link tag, we used to put it into our HTML. Similarly, you can write JavaScript inline within tags, embedded within script tags, and external in external files. Okay, now let us not waste much time. Let us directly jump to see how to write this inline JavaScript. If I want to write JavaScript within the tag, how to write it? Now, take this example. This is more simple. Don't go for this one. Okay, look at this one. I have an input tag. I write input type is equals to button. You know what will this type is equals to button do? It will produce a button. It will display you a button on the browser. Okay, and then on click, there is a attribute called as on click is equals to. Then you write some JavaScript here. You write some JavaScript. Whatever is written in red color is JavaScript. So you can see here that on click, you want to execute some JavaScript, and you can write that code directly here only. What you have written here is alert into bracket, are you sure? Simple. Okay, alert, are you sure? This is a JavaScript function. Alert is a JavaScript function. You know what does alert do? Alert will display you a small pop-up message box. If in JavaScript you want to display a small pop-up message box, some message you want to display to the user, then we use the alert method. We use the alert function. The alert is a method to display a small message box, and this is in JavaScript to display a small alert box. So I write JavaScript directly here in the tag itself. On click, do this. On click, do this. We say that. Let us take this example and understand. So I'll copy that. I will go back to my code. Yeah, there it is. And then, okay, so first I'll save this file, save. You know where I'm saving it. I'm saving it in the D drive, in the web folder, and then I will save it here. I will call this as, web here. I'll call this as jstest.html. Remember, even if you're writing JavaScript in your HTML, if you're embedding, you're writing JavaScript, you still have to save the page with extension .html only. Okay, you have to save it with extension .html only. So I have my body tag here, no script. So I will remove that no script I don't want, and then I will display some welcome to JavaScript. Okay, some simple. So file, save, and then if I go to my D drive, I'll go to my D drive, and then D drive has got this web folder. Then I have my what was that? JS test guy. There it is. So if I double click on that, welcome to JavaScript. Simple, no problem. It's coming properly. Okay, so it's coming properly. Now what I will do is I will paste that code. Okay, so input. So I'll just paste that. I say input type is equals to button on click. Are you sure? And that's it. So I think this will work. So I save this file, save. I come here, I refresh this. So you can see, oh my God, once again, instead of a button, it is displaying me a text box. Why? Maybe because there is a little problem with this. What I will do here is I will remove that. No, that is required. See, the textbook in the textbook, I just directly copied it from the textbook, but still it's not working. Can I do this? No, that is not helping me. So I put that. I cannot put this here. Input type is equals to button, BUTT1 button, name, not name, value is equals to click me. Okay. Yeah, there is a problem here. Okay. So I saved it, I refreshed. Now I should be able to see a button. I saw a button there. Now I'm going to write that code. Okay. I'm going to copy this, on click, do this, Control C. I copied that and I want to paste it here, Control V. So I think now it should work. So what I have here is input type is equals to button, and then I say value is equals to click me. What is this value for a button? What you want to display on the button? So on the button, you can see that I'm displaying this text called as click me. I want that to appear on the button. So I write value is equals to click me. On click alert, it should display me a message saying that, are you sure, or something like that. So file, save, come here, refresh, click. So when I clicked on that, you can see that it displayed me a small pop-up message here saying that, are you sure? It's saying, are you sure? I say, okay. I click on that again that gets executed. So I say, okay. I click on that, again that gets displayed. So what you have understood from this is that I have written a little JavaScript here. This is JavaScript from here to here. And where I'm writing this JavaScript, I'm writing it in the tag itself. So you can see that I've written the JavaScript in the tag itself. So this is an example of inline JavaScript. Inline JavaScript is when you write JavaScript within the tag itself. You can write any code. Okay, here you can write any JavaScript code. Here what I have written is, I've written some simple thing. If I on click, I say x var x is equals to 100. By the way, this is how you declare variables in JavaScript. So I refresh this, I click, so I declared a variable. So I've written some JavaScript code here. By the way, let me tell you that this is how we declare variables in JavaScript. We write var space x is equals to 100. So that has happened. And then after that, I say sum is equals to x plus x, I put a semicolon, and then I say alert sum. Okay, so I've written some JavaScript here. I've written 3 lines in the JavaScript. The first line is I'm declaring a variable, then I'm declaring one more variable called as var sum is equals to x plus x. So x is 100, 100 plus 100 is 200. So in sum what goes, 200 goes, and then I'm displaying the value of sum by using the alert function. Now let us see whether this will work or not. So file save, I go there, I refresh. So you can see 200 gets displayed here. My 200 gets displayed here. Why? Because I've written some JavaScript here. This is the first statement, ends with a semicolon. Second statement ends with a semicolon. Third statement ends with a semicolon. So I've written some JavaScript code here. Declared a variable, did sum of that, and then after that displayed the sum. Okay, so this is inline. So I will explain to you people the other ways of embedding JavaScript in the next class. When we put JavaScript in script tag, it is called as embedded. So this, we will be doing it in the next class. I will stop here today. In case if you have any doubts, please note them down and you can ask me in the next class. Okay, so bye-bye. Have a nice day, all of you.